Hey everybody, it's Sean with Southern Audacity. Thanks for stopping in. If you are new to the channel, please like, share, subscribe. If you are a returning subscriber, thanks for joining. Today I'm going to show you how I make these coasters. Some people call them mug rugs, but I use my embroidery machine to stitch the lettering, and then it's all put together using the sewing machine. I am using a 4x4 embroidery hoop, so this is a project that most people with embroidery machines at home can do. So stay tuned. Alrighty, so for this project, you're going to be using both your embroidery machine and your sewing machine. You can actually skip the embroidery part if you don't have an embroidery machine, and instead of having the embroidery in the middle, you can find something with like a really cute design and have that placed at the center of your coaster, so that, or mug rug, whatever you want to call it, so that you'll have a design in it, or just leave it with whatever the fabric is. But we'll get started. The first thing I did was I measured out 6x6, a square, and I just made a template, but you're going to cut 2 pieces of fabric and at least 1 piece of towel. The towel that I'm using, this came from Dollar Tree, and I forgot to prep this part. So I'm just going to use my fabric that I already had cut out, and I will just line that up on here, and I will cut this out so that it'll be ready. But like I was saying, this towel came from the Dollar Tree. My fabrics all came from Walmart. Okay, so this is a little bit over, but that's okay. It'll still work. So like I was saying, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric and at least 1 piece of towel cut at 6x6, which is a square. I did make my template on a piece of cardboard paper. And then you're also going to need 2 pieces of fabric that measure 6 inches long and 4 inches up and down. The thing is, it's on a fold. So that's the fabric that you had. And I guess I probably should have measured it out or wrote the measurement out as needing a piece of fabric that's 6x8, because it really is 6x8, but then it's folded in half. Okay. And so you're going to need 2 pieces, and it's going to be folded, and you want to make sure that you press everything to the best of your ability. So now I have my 4x4 embroidery hoop, because I don't need a big hoop for this. I'm going to move this off to the side. The only thing that I'm going to use the embroidery machine for is to stitch the design onto the this fabric that will be the main thing that you see with the coaster. Okay. So what I'm going to do, you know, I like my grids. I'm going to use this cutting mat. This is one of those self-healing cutting mats, because my grid on my table is kind of stretched out and it's not really lining up good anymore. So I'm going to make sure that I follow my notches on here and kind of line everything up. So there's a line right here and there's a line right here going down. And then I'm just going to put a dot right where they meet, so that I know exactly where my center point is for my hoop. And now for my fabric that I'm going to be stitching onto, I'm going to press it out for one so that it's not so terribly wrinkled. And this is the little iron. I got this at Walmart, but it's also available on Amazon. But I'm going to fold this piece of fabric just so that I can find the center point. And then I'm going to just make sure that I line the center point right here. You can either just hold it there and get it in place, or you could do like I like to do and use a straight pin. And right there in the center, I just poke it through and just line it up on your hoop. Now, you can use 505 or basting spray or something to hold your fabric in place. For this, you can actually even use the Pellin 808 fusible and iron it in place. But I'm just using classic tearaway stabilizer here, okay? So I'm going to do 2 pins, one up at the top that is going to be far away from my stitch field, and one down at the bottom that will also be far away from my stitch field. Now, if you feel more comfortable pinning all the way around, you can do that. Or if you want to actually hoop it the way you're supposed to, you can actually just hoop your fabric and just give yourself a little extra fabric so that you can get it hooped and then trim everything out afterwards. I just did this so that I can make sure my G is actually where I need it to be at, okay? So now I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to stitch this out in a yellow thread just for the sake of it being visible on camera. I looked at it, I was like, maybe the silver doesn't show very well on the video. So I'm going to stitch it in yellow just for the sake of this video so you can see how this is done. And let's go to the camera. Let's go to the embroidery machine. Alrighty, so we are over at the Brother VE2200, which is a single needle embroidery machine by Brother. We're just using the 4x4 hoop because that is all we need today. And so I'm using a 7511 sharp embroidery needle, and I'm using 90 weight bobbin thread, 40 weight polyester embroidery thread that is by Coats. I've got these bigger spools that I need to use up. The color I'm not really sure of because there's text on the bottom of it, but it doesn't have a color number unless that 4423068 is the color number. I'm not sure, but we're going to go ahead and get this stitched. I'll lower the presser foot and hit go. So like I said, or I think I said, this is about a 10-minute stitch out, and the font that I'm using, let me hit pause real quick. The font I'm using is called Old English, and I'm not sure who it's from, but if you search Old English, I know I got it off of Etsy, I just don't know who it's from. But I'm hitting stop right now because there's a lot of extra tail hanging from this, and I don't want that to be all stitched up in there. So I'm just going to clip that, and now I'll just let it resume. So like I said, this will just take about 10 minutes to stitch out, and it's just because I'm running this machine a little bit slower. I'm only running it at 600. It will go up higher than 600, but I had watched something years ago, and the guy was talking about machines, and he said, well, you wouldn't run your car at 120 just because there's 120 on the dash. So why would you run your equipment at its max all the time and wear it out? So after hearing that, I was just like, okay, I'm not going to run my machines at max speed if I don't have to. If I'm not in a hurry to get something done, it's not going to be run at, neither of them are going to be run at max speed. So that is why I run it slow. So I'm going to let this stitch out and I'll check back in. Okay, so I had to stop and take this off the hoop. I really started messing up here. If you could tell, the material folded down and it started stitching over onto this, and I was looking like, well, what in the world? Okay, so I evidently need to pin it down better. This is not one of those fabrics that you could just let lightly float. So definitely pin it down all the way around if you can, or use a adhesive spray, or just hoop it under the hoop the way it's supposed to be hooped. You might be able to tell a little bit better from the back where it actually started getting caught up, but I'm gonna rehoop, and I'm gonna cut and rehoop another piece of fabric, and we're going to start all over. Alrighty, so I am rehooping another piece of fabric, and I did spray a little bit of the basting spray. This is the basting spray that I use because I don't have any 505. So this is the Spray and Bond basting adhesive. So this also came from Walmart. You could get it on Amazon or wherever you shop. I use that to spray it down. I'm gonna rehoop now. And hopefully between the basting spray and the pins going all the way around, hopefully everything is stable enough. So I need to actually go back through here and return. I didn't have to return. I could have went back to the beginning. But since I did this, now I've got to go back and retrieve it from off of the flash drive. There's my G that I want, and I'm going to hit embroidery, and I do want to rotate it, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and let's see here. Now I'm going to hit start. Well, I'm going to lower the pressure foot, and then I'll hit start. So I'm just going to let it stitch out now, and I will come back in a little while. Alrighty, it is still stitching along. In just a few more minutes and we will be done with the embroidery part. Alrighty, so she is done stitching, and I will take her off of the hoop. I don't know why I'm saying her, but it. This is what it looks like stitched out. I don't know what happened there, but we'll roll with it. Yeah, it looks like the tension got off somewhere in the back there. So what I'll end up doing, I'll just like use one of these pins and try to pull that thread through and see if I could correct that thread coming out, because I don't know what happened there. Yeah, and I think that might work if I just go through and pull it, because the back side nobody is going to see. And what I will do is I'll put a little bit of fray check on it just to make sure it doesn't come back out. Yeah, that did it. Can you tell? Right over in there where the thread was hanging out. So I'll put a little bit of fray check back here where I pulled the threads out, and we'll go to the next step. Alrighty, so we are back to the table, and I am going to use the Dritz fray check to put back here where those threads are hanging out a little bit, and that'll act like a glue to keep those threads from being able to move. Then I'll put my lid back on, and now I'm going to just go ahead and take the straight pins out. And I'll go ahead and take this off of here. Oh, I did go and look to see where this font came from, and it was a shop on Etsy, and the font is called Old English, but the shop's name is Shea Embroidery. Or Shea Embroidery. I'm not sure how they pronounce the first three letters, but that's the name of the shop that I got the design from. And let's see here, I'll take this off. Or maybe I won't get all of this paper off because I used the basting spray. I definitely want to get this off, because I could see throwing this in the washer and then there will be a bunch of lumps up under it, and that's not what I want. And I cut all my nails off the other day, so let's see here. I'm going to just use that and try to scratch it up a little bit. I'm just using that to scratch it and pull that up so I could get that stabilizer off. Okay, so now I can tell where I put the fray check, the fray, what is it called? Fray stop. Yeah, freight check, where it's kind of showing through on here. And with this thread, it might leave a dark spot. I'm not sure. I don't really care for how that's stitched out there. It didn't stitch out like that on this one, or did it? Huh. But anyways, you can always use whatever design you want on your coaster. So now we've got these pieces that we've got to put together. So remember the other piece of fabric that is 6 by 6? We're going to use that, put that on the bottom as you're stacking these layers up. Then get your piece of towel that is 6 by 6 and line that up on top of it. And then use your main fabric or your feature fabric and put that on top of the towel. Now, the pieces that are, when they're folded, they measure 4 by 6. You want to use the folded end towards the center and just line it up so that it's at the edge, because you're going to want these two folded pieces to overlap each other, okay? So you'll take the next one and you'll do the same thing. And I'm lining these up so that they're lined up with the main fabric, not with the towel. The towel is a little bit over. Now I'm going to try to carefully pin these in place. And I am going to put a few pins in it just to make sure that the pieces stay lined up as well as I could possibly get them. Okay. And I'll put one more in just for that corner. Now, it is very important that you have the folded pieces in the center of your coaster. You want them to be overlapping because this is how we're going to open it up when we get done stitching. So now I'm just going to go to the sewing machine. I'm just going to run a straight stitch all the way around, okay? I am going to do a back stitch initially and stitch all the way around, and I'll end it with a back stitch, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I did the straight stitch all the way around, and I did back stitch initially, and then when I ended it, I back stitched as well, just to make sure everything gets locked in place. Now I will go through and trim some of this extra off of here. Just be careful not to get too close to your stitches, because you don't want to cut your project and then you've wasted a lot of time and material. Okay. And if you have a serger, you could serge down the sides, and that would make it neater, and then wrap up some of that towel so that you're not having all that thread or fabric, whatever they call it, going everywhere. Okay, so now this is how we're going to open it up so that you see your coaster or mug rug, depending on how big you make it and where you're from, because I pretty much call them the same thing, mug rug, coasters, but growing up they were coasters. When I started doing embroidery, I realized a lot of people called them mug rugs, and I actually just like that a little bit better. But anyways, just poke your corners out to try to get them out as best as you can. You definitely don't want them to be inverted. And if you have something, you can use something like a turner or something to push them out. I don't recommend using these scissors to push it out, but I'm going to right now because they're next to me. And That's about as good as it's going to get. And this is why I use the other piece of fabric, so that you'll have that inside as well. So now I'm going to press this and we are going to call it done. Now, if you would like, you can always do a stitch down around the edges, or you could just leave it as this, like this. I'm going to leave it like this. And this is the first one that I did. This one, I think I stitched in a little too close because they're not quite the same size, but that sometimes happens when you're doing things by hand and you're just trying to get your projects done. But I like them. I'm going to use them, and let me know if you try it. Remember, 6 by 6 square times 3 essentially, because you're going to have 2 pieces of fabric, 1 piece that is the towel in the middle. Or if you want to double up on the towels, you could definitely do that to make your coaster more absorbent. And then you're going to use the folded piece that's going to be 8 by 6, but then when you fold it, it's going to be 4 by 6. Okay, and you're going to need 2 of those and have it on the fold so that the back looks like this. Alrighty. Well, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and let me know if you've tried this before or if you try it after this video. Take care.